I am Jan Fohlman. I was on the poster session, but it was now converted into a small lecture about a new adjuvant. I am from Sweden, which is a country in the very north of Europe, between Norway and Finland, and with a bridge to Denmark. This country does share out a prize that everybody want to have, and you're very welcome to come and collect it, the Nobel Prize. And I would like to thank the organization and especially Professor Nick Petrovsky for giving me the chance to talk about further modification of the old ISCOM immunostimulating complex that was originally presented by who is still active, although being over 80 years old. I will talk a little more about that. So vaccines are very effective, we know that. We have eradicated smallpox. Oops, sorry. This is my friend here, who is a professor in Melbourne, in genetics, ecological genetics. He was vaccinated with smallpox and got a very severe reaction of holding his arm full with vesicles and giving him this scar, which is fairly big. But eradication of a disease, I think, is very impressive. And we also have polioviruses eradicated, type 2 since long, and type 3 seems also to be off the planet. It's not officially announced because it has to be 3 years. And there are no cases of polio in Africa this year, and only about 30 cases in Pakistan, Afghanistan, where there still are some problems and where they do kill the vaccinators. I want to talk about the application for influenza, which is a deadly disease, as you know. And there is a recommendation for yearly vaccinations in varying degrees in different countries. In the US, it's a very wide indication. We have a less wide indication. The protection rate is somewhere from 20 to 80%. Usually about half the vaccinated people are really protected. You can expect to get a milder disease if you are vaccinated. We have seen with the pandemics that there were severe reactions with the narcolepsy. It was first noted, I think, in Finland and also in Sweden. We have a couple of 100 cases, mostly below the age of 20 years, and the risk was 3 to 10 or maybe even 20-fold increased, and also among people up to 30 years old, and they have a severe handicap for the rest of their lives, and you will need a multidisciplinary team to help these guys. And the Glaxo company actually did not take any responsibility for side effects, so it remains with in this case, Swedish state to give some kind of reimbursement for these people, but it has not been settled as yet. We have no adjuvanted vaccines in the US for influenza, and we have no T-cell activation usually with influenza vaccination. And therefore the immune response is not always broad enough to cover during the epidemic, where you will see some antigenic shift usually, and oftentimes the disease gets milder with time during the epidemic. This was very true in the last season, where there was a severe mismatch between the vaccine strain and the actual epidemic strain, so that the protective effect maybe was only 5%. This is the figure from Sweden, where we usually have the most cases in March, and this year was more than the years before. And it has been calculated that about 1,000 people died from this disease during the last season. So we are hoping to see a changing world, as was presented here before. We need adjuvants, and maybe third generation adjuvants, and how they are defined I'm not quite sure how to do, but what we would need is adjuvants with T-cell activation. There are some already commercialized vaccines. I would like to give attention to a very newly published vaccine against shingles, herpes zoster, which gives you 97–98% protection as compared to the old vaccine Zostavax, which only had 50% protection. And it will also be, it doesn't show any diminution with age as the Zostavax did. So with this new G3DT adjuvant, which is a modification of ISCOM, it's still Quilla saponaria 21, Quilla S extract, combined with a diterpene, which is an extract from another plant, stevia, which gives you also the sweetener, glucoside sweetener. And it is smaller than the ISCOM. The ISCOM is about 40 nanometers. This is about 20 nanometers. And it contains no phospholipid. So less antigen would be needed. We hope to have a longer protective effect and a broader protective effect. And this is shown by an animal experiment performed in retired Professor Albert Osterhaus laboratory in Holland. It is published 2014, and it was using a trivalent commercial split virion vaccine. There was a challenge infection with an antigenically distinct Puerto Rico strain, H1N1. And as you can see here, I will only draw your attention to the red split virion, G3DT, where the animals do lose weight, but after day 5 and 6, there is a significant weight increase, which is not seen with the other vaccines. There was a very good survival, and the virus was cleared from the lungs, as you can see here, which was not the case in the other. Antibodies were formed, as you can see, at about 10 times higher. This is a log scale level for all the vaccine strains, but there were no antibodies formed against the challenging strain. So how could they be protected? Well, there was CD8 T cell production, and we believe that heterotypic response protection was due to the T cells. So in summary, there was a weight gain, there was a survival, and there was a reduced lung titer. There was no cross-reactivity in the antibody response, and the cytotoxic T lymphocytes contributed to the cross-protection. So you can see an improved IgG response that is using less antigen, or you can say that you save time in a situation where you need to make a vaccine very fast because you don't need to make so much antigen. And you will have a T-cell response and a broader and hopefully one-shot vaccination, and maybe it will last also longer. These chemicals already have been applied for many veterinary vaccines, and they are also accepted for human use. So, everyone needs a vaccine. Believe me. Thank you. Will there be any questions? I'll be glad to answer. Yes?
In terms of, say, influenza vaccines, how do you see the position of, say, live cold adapted and so on, flu vaccines and their ability to get T-cell responses and so on and so forth? Do you see that as being one way to solve the issue on some
using live vaccines?
Yes.
Of course, live vaccines are always, and a real infection will always give you a better immune response than a split vaccine. I don't know how to answer your question, but live vaccines, of course, have another drawback, as you well know, that they can revert to the virulent strain. But there are live.
There's a couple of ones that
Yeah, there are ones available. Yes, yes.
But do you see that as being able to, for example, cover a greater range of influenza because of the broader activity of the live vaccine?
I don't know. It may well be. Nick, please.
So I was just wondering, have you actually compared the new adjuvants to either QS21 or ISCOM? So, I mean, I presume that they'll give similar effects. Is that a fair?
The advantage with this is it is a bit cheaper to produce. It is a little simpler. You can introduce many antigens, and the role, this is quite new. So whether the advantages will be there or not is for the future to be shown. And this is.
But do these form a particle?
Yeah, they do. They form a 20 nanometer particle as compared to the 40 nanometer of ISCOM.
And they have cholesterol in them, or?
No, there's no phosphatidylcholine or phospholipid in them.
So they don't look like an ISCOM under.
They do have a rounded shape and look like that, and are smaller. So they call them nanoparticles. Okay, I think we have to. No, sorry.
You said they are approved for human use, right? Has it ever been tested?
They are not tested in the human. This is a mouse model, and in the future I hope to come back here and talk about human use.
Because I'm talking about side effects and
we don't know that yet. That's what we are going to test.
I guess coming back to that, because I know that CSL will make ISCA matrix claim that by incorporating the phospholipid, they reduce the toxicity of the sapheners, which otherwise cause hemolysis if you inject free QS21, and that's been a major problem. So I'm just wondering, by removing that phospholipid component, do you get hemolysis? Have you actually tested whether this causes hemolysis?
I cannot answer that question. I know they are very well tolerated, but this is to be tested, yes. It has to be tested. I think we should have coffee, and then we will be back at 11 o'clock, starting with a new lecture.